Hi, this is Katie Weeks, your independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator. And today I'm joining with Miranda Weber over at the My Scrappy Life virtual crop for a Sketchy Inspiration challenge. And I'm taking a sketch from the Close to My Heart, Make It From Your Heart, Volume 6 sketchbook, and I am doing number 18. I give you a few dimensions in the description below, but I want to show you this is the Sweet Days of Autumn designer series paper and the sticker sheet. Are those papers beautiful? And the one has trees on it. This needs to go a specific direction. And then here is the sticker sheet that goes with it. And I'm so excited that Close to My Heart has these items available. So I went through and used that Sketch 18 and cut out all the pieces. And now I'm going to bring in my Early Espresso Stampin' pad, and I'm going to do some inking. And the Stampin' Up! Pads are much juicier than I'm used to. So I kind of wanted to see what I had and how it would ink, knowing that it was a lot juicier than the Close to My Heart pads had been. So I'm just going to do my photo mats, and I'm thinking these might take a little bit longer to dry just because the ink seems so juicy. I'm not sure exactly how long it'll take to dry, but I go through and I find all of my photo mats. Some of my photo mats are cut in the Early Espresso, and one is on that far right. You can see under that 4x6 picture, there's one that's under that Cajun Craze print. And then across the bottom of the left-hand page, there's 3 little pictures, and those are actually in a print as well. So those I think would be like a Mossy Meadow print from the designer series paper. And I do want to tell you, I did change some things up from this sketch. So the main part of the sketch was all of these strips of paper going across from the left-hand side to the right-hand side. And a lot of times we see that they just make it a 12-inch strip across. This is actually a total of 14 inches that goes across. Well, since I wanted my patterns to continue going across, I did have to cut things a little bit different than what the sketch showed. And then there were a couple other items that I changed as well. So on the left hand page, there's 2 4x6 prints that go portrait, and then 3 small prints across the bottom. And I made those small ones a little bit larger because I really wanted to capture what was in the pictures a little bit more. And then on the right hand page, there's 3 pictures that come down the side that are supposed to be 3x3 squares, but there was one that I just didn't have it in me to cut it down to 3x3. I needed it to be a 3x4. So I made it a 3x4 because I wanted to. So you can take these sketches and change them up some. I just really wanted to use the sketch as my inspiration, and I followed it to some degree, and then I switched it up to fit what worked best for my designer series paper and for what worked best for my pictures. And you'll kind of see that as this whole layout evolves. So I went and did all of my mats in that espresso ink, and I really like how it turned out. It gave a nice dark finish to it. But for all of these other pieces in my background paper, I really think I want to do something different. I think I want to use my blending brush and just go around all of these pieces. So after I cleared those out of my way, I inked up my blending brush with that Early Espresso, and then I made sure I was tapping it off on my glass mat to get a lot of that ink off. And then I just went through and kind of brushed it, starting on the mat and then working my way onto the strip of paper. So I won't make you watch me do all these pieces, but I do want to show you how a couple of them come through. So tapping off was the key for getting the look that I wanted. And I will tell you, by inking up all these pieces, by using the blending brush, it really kind of changed the whole mood of this designer series paper. It really gave it a muted look, and I really like how it toned everything down. It was a darling paper pack, but it did kind of change things up. So I just kept tapping off on my mat, and don't forget to tap it off because this early espresso is juicy and it's very dark. And so I did that all the way around all of these strips of paper. And then I decided I wanted to do the same thing to my base pages. So these base pages are actually some old, close to my heart cardstock that was called Colonial White. It's been retired forever, but it is a perfect match for Very Vanilla. Like, I can't get over how close these colors are. So I am pulling it and using up my Colonial White a lot because it's such a good match to Very Vanilla that nobody would ever know the difference unless I told them on a video. So I went through and did this all the way around both of my pages, and it seemed like I had one that was really dark edge. So I made sure that both the left and right on the bottom had the darkest edge, which I think is kind of grounding to a layout. So that's how I did it. And so then you've got all of these things that are, you know, ready to go. And I started laying out my pieces, and those strips on that right hand side are 4 inches wide. These ones on the left hand side are 10 inches wide. I want my patterns to continue. The animals kind of go every which way, so it doesn't matter which way is up or down, but I kind of like the deer, so I made them the ones that were facing the right way. And the trees, you did need to make sure, oh, maybe I don't have the trees. Yes, I do have a strip of trees. The trees you need to make sure are going the right direction. So that's the only one that you really had to pay attention to the most. And then the strip going down the left-hand side of the left page is 10 inches long. So whatever strips you cut out, they need to add up to 10 inches or to whatever you use as that strip. So then I put these all on, and I'm going to be ready to add my pictures. So there's one tiny strip that goes underneath this 4x6 picture for the right hand side, and then I'm going to be bringing in those mats that I drug through the early espresso, and they have a nice dark edge. So I have the 3 little ones across the bottom, and instead of making those squares 2 1/8 inch squares, I made them 3 1/8 inch squares, and I think I made it work pretty well. And I thought about making them early espresso as well, but I found a print in the designer series paper that was a lighter version of that early espresso, and I thought it looked pretty good, and I thought, why not use that as my mats for these little pictures. I think it turned out pretty cute, actually. So we'll put these on, and then we will work with the pictures as well and add all of those. So all of these pictures and things are from an evening this week where my daughter and I took her 2 girls, my granddaughters, to a pumpkin stand that is like literally just a mile up the road from me. And they have a great selection of pumpkins, and I swear they're the cheapest pumpkins anywhere. And so I always make sure I get those from the neighbor kids, and then I usually get some pumpkins from somebody at school whose kids grow pumpkins to help. I think they use it for their 4-H or FFA project or something. So we had pumpkins, and then we went back to Grandma's house, and we had donut holes. And my granddaughters love sweets and donuts, and I thought this would be a nice little treat. They actually came over and we cooked out and had hamburgers and hot dogs earlier before we did pumpkins. But after the pumpkins, of course, we had donut holes, and they had fun picking out their pumpkins My only rule for them picking out their pumpkin is they had to be able to carry it. And can you see Avery? She's like trying to see if she can hold this one pumpkin all by herself. And she did. And then she even helped carry pumpkins to the car. So Mom and Dad's pumpkin were a little bit bigger than the girls, but Kinsley wanted a tiny, tiny little pumpkin. She thought the ones that were 4 for $1 were absolutely the cutest pumpkins. And so she ended up getting a different one, I think. But then she ended up taking some of the little pumpkins too. So we picked out pumpkins for my house to put on the front porch. We picked out some pumpkins for their house. And I'm guessing they'll still go as a family with their dad and Mom both to another pumpkin patch. But we had fun picking out some pumpkins. So then I came in with the sticker sheet, and I cannot tell you how excited I am that Stampin' Up! Has decided to do scrapbooking kind of like we are used to over at Close to My Heart, because I was loving some of their designer series paper, but I was definitely feeling the loss of not having sticker sheets and some sort of things to decorate up my pages. So I just kind of went through, found some things that were appropriate to go with the pages that I had, and made a little cluster on the left and put a little, I love the 12-inch strips of stickers, and between the two long ones at the bottom of the page is a very thin one, which isn't necessarily meant to be something you decorate with, but I don't let things go to waste. And I thought that tiny little skinny one was perfect under the picture on the right hand side. So I decided I'd use that. Now next, I'm bringing in a stamp set called Autumn to Remember. And I wanted to take the stamp and kind of make a shadowed look. So I brought in my crushed curry to stamp with at first. And I'm going to stamp that down first. And then I'm going to come in with Mossy Meadows. So here we go. This is my crisp autumn days is what it says. And then I'm coming in with Mossy Meadow. And I'm sorry you've got my head in here, but it's the only way I can do this. I needed to go down and to the right just a little, so it gives like this shadowed effect to it. And it worked. I don't know how well you can see it, but it did work. It's got like 2 different colors to it, and you can see both of them because of how I offset it just a tiny bit. And I like how it turned out. And so then I'm bringing in all the little leaves that are in that Autumn to Remember stamp set, and I'm going to stamp them in the crushed curry and in the Mossy Meadow and in the Cajun Craze. And then there's even like a little acorn stamp on the stamp set, and I bring that in and stamp it in some of the early Espresso. And so some of these I'm stamping, and then I'll stamp off both on the layout, which means first and second generation for the stamping. So I did that on both pages of the layout, and that really was like the extra that I needed to help fill everything in. And it just added what I needed to the page. And so I did all of this layout, and I was thinking I was pretty accomplished and finished everything. And then last night I went to go to bed, and I'm like, oh wait, the Sketchy Inspiration Challenge is supposed to have a card with it too. So I ran back to my craft room and started going through my scraps and trying to decide what I wanted to make. So you'll see me, I'm just going to continue stamping here. So I was trying to decide what I wanted to do and kind of looking at that sketch again and deciding what type of card I wanted to take as inspiration from our layout sketch. So I was looking at the layout, I was looking at the card, and I'm like, you know what I haven't done for a while is one of those slimline cards, the ones that are like 3.5 by 8.5. And I'm thinking, you know, like it's long and it kind of looks like a layout. So I decide that I'm going to take this inspiration and make a card that's kind of the same idea. So I went back to those same ink colors, the Crushed Curry, Cajun Craze, Mossy Meadow, and I started stamping and stamping off all these different leaves. And I apologize, I cut some of this out because I zoomed in since it was just the card and not a whole layout, but then I didn't keep my card in frame the whole time. So you will see here I am layering on some of those strips of paper, and honestly I didn't even measure these other than the fact that I think they were all maybe 6 inches long. So I laid down some strips of paper, and even when I did the strip down the left hand side, I think it was actually a sticker maybe. When I did the strip down the left hand side, I just ran it all the way from the 3.5 inches and I clipped off the top and the bottom. I didn't even measure it. And then I brought in a die from Greetings of the Season. It was a nice little tag, and I stamped a sentiment, and I had to do it kind of at an angle to fit it on there. And then I came back again with leaves, and these were all second generation or all stamped off, and I used that Post-it as my scrap paper, and I just stamped off all around that Bountiful Blessings sentiment that is stamped in Mossy Meadow. And then I'm going to also bring in some of the Natural Tones thread. But before I do, I kind of looked at this, and then I looked at the busy strips of paper, and I'm like, I think I need a transition between my sentiment thing here and the background. So I grabbed a scrap piece of paper of that early espresso, and I stuck this tag down, and then I cut it out so that it framed that tag, and it would make that stand out just a little bit more, because the busy on the busy just really wasn't working for me. And so I just made my own mat for that, and then off camera I punched a hole in the early espresso part that I added. And then I'm going to bring in a couple of the colors of that Natural Tones linen thread. It was like something that looked like the Mossy Meadow and the Cajun Craze. And so I tied those on, and I think that'll work for me. I just trimmed them up, and I decided to pop up that sentiment as well. And I think this would make like a really simple, cute Thanksgiving card that you could send out, or you could send it to anybody for just a fall card. And so I'm going to pop this sentiment up. I'm loving the mini dimensionals, and that's what was handy and close. And this sentiment will actually look straight because I put the angle of the tag so that the sentiment kind of it goes straight across. So there's my card, and I'll give you one last look at my layout, and I hope you were inspired. Like, comment, share, and subscribe for more crafty inspiration.